So the main driving force for the collection was really to examine the relationship between the arts and politics in Singapore, right? So we often imagine politics as that which limits the flourishing of the arts here. So I think we need only to recall the establishment of out-of-bound markers, or the OB markers, in 1991. If you recall, the term OB markers itself was used by the then Minister for the Arts and Information, or Information and the Arts, George Yeo, and it describes the boundaries of what is acceptable or permissible to be discussed as part of political discourse. And generally speaking, the OB markers tends to put limits on again, what is permissible or not permissible, right? So the OB markers were in fact put into place after Catherine Lim, who is of course the renowned Singaporean novelist, and at that time she was also a columnist for the Straits Times. So it was put into place after she criticized the government in 2 articles that she wrote in the Straits Times, right? So almost 20 years on, we see that the OB markers continue to dictate what we can or cannot say in the arts. So for instance, the withdrawal of the NAC funding for the publication of Sonny Liu's The Art of Charlie Chan Hock Chai, or even the banning of Tan Pin Pin's film To Singapore with Love. Okay, so the reasons cited again for these, in the case of these 2, artworks, okay, was that both of them tended to undermine, or they did undermine, the authority and legitimacy of the government. So what we wanted to do with this collection was really to rethink the relationship between the arts and politics, and to demonstrate that rather than it being mutually exclusive, there is in fact a mutually informative relationship between the two. So first of all, the essays in the collection address topics that are often considered taboo or subversive. A number of the essays address gay and lesbian literature and artistic practices. One of the essays evaluates the ethics in representing disability in theatre performance here. And I think that's, again, something that we don't often think about, which is that community of individuals in our society. Although I do think that there is now a lot more visibility where disability is concerned, but I think that particular essay in the collection is one of the first that actually addresses disability in performance in Singapore. We also have another essay that looks at multiplicity on the Singapore stage. So, things like what it means to be a plural society, a multicultural society, a harmonious society, and then how that translates or does not translate onto the Singapore stage. So we also have essays that speak for voices that are sometimes forgotten in the process of rapid change. So one of the essays is a photo essay which looks at families, both old and new, living in the Tiong Bahru estate. So Tiong Bahru estate is a heritage site currently, and it has been hugely affected by rapid urbanization. So the essay really looks at how residents living there, both old and new, how they managed with the change. And finally, we also have an essay on institutional memory and forgetfulness, and how we essentially preserve history, but specifically history in the sense of local and communal memories. So how do we preserve those memories, again, in a very fast-changing cityscape like Singapore? So I think overall the essays speak to concerns that are currently not, the mainstay of our, I suppose, cultural consciousness. So we actually had in mind a list of people that we wanted to invite to write, and I believe they agreed because they all felt that there was a need for a project like this, one that goes beyond the familiar, the comfortable, and one that attempts to sort of nudge the boundaries of critical discourse here. Well, I hope that readers will realize what a rich and complex, literary and artistic culture we have here. One that is quite capable of being critically engaging as well, right? I think we all agree that a democratic space is needed for the arts to flourish, and because Singapore is not generally known for its democracy, the perception is that therefore then the arts can't possibly flourish here. But that is certainly not the case. Though the arts is often still considered a subculture, of sorts here. So we need only to look, for example, at small publishing houses like Ethos and Epigram that support and publish local writers. But I think now, with the success of the Singapore Writers Festival, and also the fact that so many of our local writers, the new young local writers, are getting internationally recognized for their work, I'm sure this will change as well. The fact that it's a subculture, I think it will be much more visible. The arts will be much more visible. So I think we are headed indeed for an exciting future where the arts and literature in Singapore is concerned. So I hope that this book is part of that exciting future.